Ariana often found herself pacing the living room floor, watching her son Austin dart from one toy to another. He was a bright and curious little boy, full of energy and wonder. But keeping his focus on any one activity felt nearly impossible. Coloring books would last 5 minutes before being tossed aside. Blocks would be stacked and then abandoned just as quickly. Ariana loved his enthusiasm, but deep down, she worried. Was she doing enough to nurture his development? Was there something she was missing as a mom? She longed to find activities that would not only keep Austin engaged, but also help him grow. Activities that didn't just pass the time but built real skills like concentration, problem solving, and self-confidence. Still, every new method she tried seemed to fall flat. Austin's restlessness left her feeling overwhelmed, and sometimes even guilty, as if she wasn't providing him with the right tools to thrive. Then one day, while researching ways to support children's learning, Ariana stumbled upon the concept of sensorial activities Montessori. At first, the term sounded complex, but as she read further, something clicked. These were hands-on activities designed to engage children's senses: sight, touch, sound, smell, even taste, while also building independence and concentration. It wasn't about forcing kids to sit still or memorize. It was about letting them experience learning in a way that felt natural to them. For Ariana, it felt like a light bulb moment. She realized that maybe Austin didn't need more traditional toys or stricter schedules. Maybe he needed experiences that connected his busy little hands and sharp mind together. When she introduced her first few sensorial activities Montessori, she was amazed. For the first time, Austin sat still, his tiny fingers carefully tracing sandpaper letters. His eyes locked in concentration as he tried to match textures or pour water without spilling. What once felt like chaos began to feel peaceful. Ariana noticed Austin's frustration giving way to curiosity, and his short bursts of focus slowly stretching into longer moments of deep engagement. For both mother and son, it was a turning point. Suddenly, learning wasn't a struggle. It became joyful, calm, and even exciting. And that's when Ariana knew she had found something truly life-changing, not just for Austin, but for herself as a parent. What are sensorial activities Montessori? When we talk about sensorial activities Montessori, we're talking about more than just games or busy work. These activities are carefully designed to help children refine and strengthen their senses: touch, sight, hearing, taste, smell, and even movement. Dr. Maria Montessori, the founder of the Montessori method, believed that children are natural explorers who learn best by interacting with the world around them. She saw that when a child engages their senses, they don't just do an activity. They absorb knowledge in a deep, lasting way. Think about it. When a child runs their fingers across smooth silk and then compares it with rough sandpaper, they aren't simply feeling textures. They are learning to differentiate, to observe, to pay attention to detail. When they listen to bells of different tones and match the sounds, they aren't just playing, they are building auditory discrimination, the foundation for music and even language development. When they carefully pour water from one jug into another, they aren't just practicing coordination. They are learning patience, control, and responsibility. This is the heart of sensorial activities Montessori: structured yet playful experiences that allow children to explore the world with all their senses engaged. Instead of rote memorization, children gain real, lived experiences of concepts. A child doesn't just learn the word red. They handle red objects, compare shades, and feel what red means in their world. They don't just hear that a triangle has 3 sides. They trace the edges of a wooden triangle, noticing its angles, until the concept becomes tangible. Through these activities, learning shifts from abstract to concrete. It's not about drilling facts. It's about giving children the chance to experience knowledge for themselves. And that's why sensorial activities Montessori are so powerful. They nurture curiosity, deepen concentration, and transform learning into a joyful adventure. Why they matter for development. For Austin, sensory experiences weren't just moments of play. They were life-changing opportunities for growth. Before his mother Ariana discovered sensorial activities Montessori, Austin would often get frustrated and overwhelmed. He would jump from one thing to another, unable to stay focused. But when Ariana introduced activities like sorting objects by color, matching textures, and tracing shapes, something beautiful happened. Austin began to slow down, to notice details he once ignored, and to find joy in discovery. Through sensorial activities Montessori, Austin learned more than colors or shapes. He learned how to think. By recognizing differences, categorizing objects, and focusing on one task at a time, he was actually strengthening the neural pathways in his brain. This kind of hands-on, sensory-based learning builds concentration in a way worksheets never could. It's the difference between memorizing information and truly understanding it. But the benefits didn't stop at academics. Sensorial learning also helped Austin regulate his emotions. Pouring rice carefully into a cup, feeling smooth stones in his hand, or matching sound cylinders, gave him a sense of calm and control. These activities became more than lessons. They became a way for him to manage big feelings. The order and repetition built into sensorial activities, Montessori created a rhythm that comforted him, and over time he carried that calmness into other areas of life. The impact was especially powerful because Austin is neurodivergent. For many neurodivergent children, abstract concepts like numbers or categories can feel confusing. But when those same ideas are presented through concrete sensory experiences, holding, sorting, touching, smelling, they suddenly make sense. A number isn't just a symbol on a page. It's the weight of beads, the size of blocks, the rhythm of counting steps. This is why sensorial activities Montessori matter so much for development. They don't just teach facts. They shape the way a child interacts with the world. They help children build problem-solving skills, strengthen focus, regulate emotions, and gain confidence in their own abilities. For Ariana, watching Austin thrive was proof that sensorial learning isn't just education, it's empowerment. Practical examples of sensorial activities Montessori. Ariana didn't start big. She began with simple, everyday tools that turned ordinary moments into extraordinary lessons. Her first step into sensorial activities Montessori was introducing color tablets. She laid out shades of red, blue, and yellow on the table and invited Austin to sort them. At first he rushed, tossing colors together without much thought. But as Ariana gently encouraged him to slow down, Austin's eyes sharpened. He began to notice, this red is darker than that one. This blue has a hint of green in it. What seemed like a simple task was actually training his brain to pay attention to subtle differences. It wasn't just about colors, it was about developing focus. Next came the sandpaper letters. Ariana handed Austin a wooden board with a rough letter A on it. She guided his little finger over the textured surface. At first he giggled at the scratchy feeling, but then he grew quiet, tracing again and again. Touching the letters gave him a physical connection to language. He wasn't just seeing letters, he was feeling them. For Austin, who often struggled to connect with abstract symbols, this multi-sensory approach made reading less intimidating and far more engaging. Ariana then introduced sound cylinders. She filled small containers with rice, beans, and sand, sealing them tightly. She handed Austin two at a time, asking him to shake and listen. His face lit up with curiosity. Some made a faint whispering sound, while others rattled loudly. Matching the sounds helped him refine his sense of hearing, but it also taught him patience. He had to slow down, listen carefully, and compare. Skills that carried over into how he approached challenges in everyday life. For touch, Ariana set up a texture-matching activity. She placed items on a tray: a piece of soft fabric, a rough stone, a smooth glass bead, and a bumpy shell. She blindfolded Austin and placed one item in his hand, asking him to find its match. He smiled when he got it right, proud of himself. Through these moments, he wasn't just learning textures. He was building tactile awareness, concentration, and the confidence that he could figure things out if he'd paid attention. Finally, Ariana brought out smelling jars. She filled small jars with cinnamon, coffee, vanilla, and lemon peel. When Austin opened them, his little nose wrinkled and then widened in delight. "That one smells like cookies," he exclaimed with the cinnamon jar, "and this one is Mommy's coffee." These activities might seem simple, but they gave Austin a new way to connect the world of sense to memory, language, and daily life. Each of these sensorial activities, Montessori wasn't just a lesson, it was a moment of connection. Ariana noticed that Austin looked forward to these times, not as schoolwork, but as joyful bonding. They laughed, explored, and discovered together. What surprised Ariana most was how peaceful these sessions became. Instead of battles over attention, there was calm focus. Instead of frustration, there was pride and wonder. For Ariana and Austin, these activities weren't just teaching tools, they were bridges. Bridges to learning, to focus, and to a deeper relationship between mother and son. The Montessori philosophy in action. At the heart of Montessori is one simple but powerful principle: independence. For Ariana, this was the most beautiful part of introducing sensorial activities Montessori into her home. She began noticing little changes in Austin that meant everything. One afternoon, she set up a pouring activity. 2 small pitchers, one filled with water and the other empty, sat on the table. At first, Austin's little hands trembled as he tried to pour, and a few drops spilled onto the tray. But instead of rushing to help, Ariana waited. She watched as Austin steadied his grip, focused his eyes, and carefully poured again, this time without spilling a single drop. His face lit up with pride. To Ariana, it wasn't just practice, it was mastery. He wasn't simply learning how to pour, he was learning patience, control, and the joy of doing something by himself. That's the heart of the Montessori method. Sensorial activities Montessori aren't about memorization or perfection. They're about giving children the tools to explore and the freedom to try. When Austin matched textures, traced sandpaper letters, or listened closely to sound cylinders, he wasn't just completing a task. He was building confidence in his ability to figure things out on his own. Ariana noticed how this independence spilled over into other areas of his life. He began putting away his toys without being asked, choosing his own clothes, and even helping set the table. These were small acts, but each one was rooted in the same Montessori philosophy: respect the child's ability to learn through experience. Most importantly, Ariana saw Austin's sense of self-worth growing stronger every day. He wasn't just proud of what he accomplished, he was proud of himself. Montessori gave him the space to succeed, but also the space to fail safely and try again. And each time he succeeded, his belief in himself grew. For Ariana, watching this transformation was more than rewarding. It was healing. She realized that through these sensorial activities, Montessori, Austin wasn't just learning about colors, sounds, and textures. He was learning about life, independence, and the quiet strength that comes from knowing I can do this on my own. For Ariana, the biggest lesson wasn't found in a textbook or a parenting manual. It came from watching Austin thrive through simple hands-on moments. She realized that learning doesn't have to feel forced. It doesn't have to look like rigid worksheets, endless repetition, or pressure to keep up. Real learning, she discovered, blossoms when a child is given space, trust, and experiences that awaken their natural curiosity. When she offered Austin a world of textures, colors, and sounds through sensorial activities Montessori, she wasn't just teaching him skills, she was giving him the keys to explore life at his own pace. Austin didn't need to be pushed. He needed to be guided. He didn't need to be told what to memorize. He needed to be invited to experience knowledge with his own hands, eyes, and ears. And that's the true heart of sensorial activities, Montessori. They go beyond academics. They nurture focus, patience, and independence. They teach children that mistakes aren't failures, they're stepping stones to mastery. They remind parents, too, that growth is not about rushing, but about honoring the journey. For Ariana, the transformation in Austin became her greatest reward. She saw her once restless, easily frustrated little boy grow into a child who could sit calmly, concentrate deeply, and take pride in even the smallest achievements. Every time he smiled after completing an activity on his own, she was reminded that these moments weren't just exercises. They were building blocks for his future confidence. The takeaway's clear. When parents embrace sensorial activities Montessori, they aren't just helping their children refine their senses. They are helping them grow into focused, capable, and confident individuals, one sensory experience at a time. If you're a parent like Ariana, navigating the ups and downs of raising a curious, energetic, or even easily overwhelmed child, know this: you don't have to have all the answers at once. You don't need a fancy classroom or endless supplies to make a difference. What you need is a willingness to begin, one small step at a time. Try introducing just a few sensorial activities Montessori at home this week. Start small. Maybe you gather a set of texture cards or even create your own by gluing different fabrics onto cardboard. Maybe you put together simple sound jars, tiny containers filled with rice, beans, or beads that your child can shake and compare. Watch what happens when their hands explore, when their ears listen, when their senses guide their discoveries. The magic isn't in perfection. It's in the moment your child's eyes light up with wonder. It's in the quiet focus that settles over them as they pour water without spilling or match to identical scents. It's in their smile when they master something that once felt out of reach. Because sometimes the path to growth doesn't begin with expensive programs or complicated lessons. It begins with the simplest sensory moment. And when you invite your child into that world, you're not just offering activities, you're opening a doorway to confidence and independence, and joy that will stay with them for a lifetime.